Welcome back to the show. Are you a self-proclaimed high achiever, people pleaser, driven personality, type A personality? Do any of these resonate with you? Are you consistently too busy, overwhelmed, exhausted, overloaded, have too many things on your plate, have a mile-long to-do list? Do any of those resonate with you? Today, we're going to talk about how to stop overcommitting. And I will say that this has been one of my biggest lessons that I have been working through and consistently am being challenged with because of how easy it is to get into a place of overcommitting, saying yes to too many things because you are such a passionate person or because you are a high achiever, a people pleaser, or a person who just likes to do and to be busy. We're going to talk about some of the main things that you can do to finally stop overcommitting and driving yourself crazy. Are you ready? Here we go. The biggest thing to really start this out with is, why do you overcommit? Why do you overcommit? What is the reason that you're overcommitting? And this is actually the first thing that you can start to do, is to evaluate, why are you overcommitting in the first place? What is popping up? Is it some old wounds, some old beliefs, some old stories that says that you have to be busy and to commit to all of these things in order to be worthy, loved, successful, possible, adequate? Anything that pops up, any emotion that gets triggered in, can be part of the reason that you are struggling with saying no and stopping to overcommit. One of the things that I learned on my journey was that the reason I overcommitted consistently all the time, like an addict, was because I was scared to not work myself to death. I was scared because I had learned at a very young age that when you are working hard, when you are pushing yourself, when you're constantly busy and constantly on the go, you're more worthy, people love you more, you get more attention, and you're a valuable person in society. Those were the messages that I got. Now, were they directly told to me? Sometimes they were, but not typically. These were all subconscious things that were fed into my brain ever since I was young. So as I grew up, I felt like I had to push and to work and to just be busy all the time. Because if I wasn't, then I was not worthy. I was not possible. I was not a valuable person in society. I wasn't as loved as I could be if I was pushing myself harder. So evaluate what is coming up for you. What emotions get triggered or come to the surface when you think about not overcommitting or not pushing yourself or not saying yes more than you say no? What does that feel like? Because that's a great indicator of what might be popping up. Now, another thing that could be making you overcommit and saying yes way too much could be your love languages. Maybe you love to do things for people, or maybe you think that some of the people in your relationships, that their love language is acts of service. So what do? You give more. You put out there. If your love language is acts of service, then you're going to be more likely to go out and push and to give and to be into that place of wanting to give out your time, give out yourself, and give out what you can in order to make other people happy, because ultimately that comes back and it serves you too. It's a big reason of why people overcommit, is because that's how they speak love. That's how they speak into giving and being appreciated. Now, another piece of this is, why do you overcommit? It could be because you don't know what your limits are. You don't know what your limits are. You don't necessarily know how to delegate. You don't know how to give out and to ask other people for help and support. It could be that you literally have not trained yourself to get into a place of knowing when to stop and also being able to give the task out. Now, there is a lot of stuff that goes along with that too. There's a lot of old wounds, beliefs, childhood stories that may cause you to do that. But it's another big thing of why you may overcommit, is not knowing the limits and not knowing how to delegate, or not knowing who to delegate to. So that's something that you can really step back and sink into and understand what makes you feel exhausted and what makes you feel pushed enough, but you still have lots of energy and it feels satisfying rather than overwhelming and exhausting. Know the why of why you're overcommitting. Know the reason. Know the reason to why you're overcommitting. That's a huge piece of this puzzle. Let's move on to the next piece. The next piece is making a priority list. Know what your priorities are. A lot of us, especially if you're more tuned in to overcommitting and to saying yes way more than you say no, is because you don't have your priority list. And if you do think you have your priority list, you may not be living in it because all of these other things filter in and the priorities are not at the top of your mind. So figure out what your priorities in life are. Are they your family? Are they exercise? Are they your inner work coming into figuring out why you're overcommitting, right? Is part of your priority list activities with your children, or maybe family time in the evening, or cooking all of your own meals? Know what your priorities are. Because when you know the priorities, now you can finally step into seeing if an ask coming in is lining up with your priorities, or even if you have time to be able to do both your priorities and the asks coming in. So make that priority list and figure out where you're really stepping into. I usually recommend anywhere from about 5 to 7 priorities that you have in your life, making sure to not go too much and not too little, but just about 5 to 7, and asking yourself, what are the most important things in my life right now that I need to be doing on a regular basis to make me feel more joyous, but also aligned in my life and my happiness? What are those things? I know for me personally, I need to have time to exercise and to work on my health. Part of that is my cooking. I love to cook and I love to create meals. So if I don't have that time, that's a big issue for me. Another piece for me is stepping into my spirituality and really connecting into my higher beings and what feels good in my soul. When I don't have time for that, I feel like a wreck. I feel like I am just not grounded and balanced. And another big piece for me is spending time with the people that I love, making sure that I'm sinking into that love time, because for me, part of my love language is physical touch. I want to be around people that I love, to be able to touch them, to be able to hug them, to be able to have that connection. That's super important for me. When I don't get it, I feel very unfulfilled. So know those priorities, and when your asks or when these commitments come in, you can now take them and mirror them right up beside your priorities and say, do they fit? And if they don't fit, then it's time to start drawing the lines, setting the boundaries, and saying no more often. A game changer for me is listening to my body's cues. Now, I love human design. I've been getting more into human design, and I have learned that my authority, and if you don't know human design terms, that is okay. I will explain what I mean by this. But I learned that my authority is the sacral authority. And what that means is essentially, I know if something is good for me or not good for me, depending on how I feel in my gut. That women's intuition, or that sinking gut feeling, some people might call it. That's how I know how I am tuning in, or if I need to step away and not commit to whatever that ask is, right? So if I feel like I'm getting a sinking feeling in my stomach, like it feels like rocks are in my stomach, or if my body just feels heavier and I feel more dense, that's a great sign that I need to say no. However, I may feel some butterflies in my stomach, or I may feel a lightness wash over my body, and my gut, my intuition feels very light and open. For me, that's a yes. That's a hell yes. And that means that I need to commit to it. Even if it doesn't make sense on paper, I need to commit to it. So listen to your body. For some people, they may feel it in their heart, and it may come out as more emotions, that emotional authority if you're looking at your human design. Or it could come out in other ways. Maybe you get a lump in your throat when you should say no. Or maybe when something is not right for you or it's too much, maybe you start to feel tightness in your shoulders and your neck and you start clenching up. Or maybe you just feel more negative. Maybe you start to feel negative. You start to feel, oh, I can't believe I have to do this. Oh, this does not feel exciting. It doesn't feel fun, right? Those are the kind of things to cue into, because your body is super smart. For me, it's listening to my gut. For you, it could be something else. But pay attention to your body and what it's saying to help cue you in if you should say yes or if you should say no, thank you. And then finally, avoid last minute commitments. This is a big one, because if you are driven and you are used to saying yes more quickly and impulsively, if you struggle with saying no, then when these last minute asks come in, you may be more likely to say, yeah, I'll do it. Sure. But that's impulsive. And for some people, impulsivity is great. However, it can really throw you into a tailspin if you are being impulsive and saying yes way more quickly than what you should. So this tip is set a rule. Set a rule. And that rule could be different for you than it is for me. For me, my rule is I'm going to wait at least a day so I have time to check in with my gut. So I have time to think about what my priorities are and what it is that I have on my schedule right now. And then I can come from a very educated place of what is really going to make sense and what my body is saying yes to. Having that rule is going to be a game changer, because that rule is going to help you to move into a place of feeling less stress in the long run, but especially helping you to honor yourself, give yourself respect and love to be able to make a wise choice rather than a quick, impulsive choice. And it also trains people to not necessarily expect that you're just going to say yes right away. That's a big one to this rule. a big one because people, humans, we're trainable. We're trainable. And if you are constantly saying yes all the time, quickly, impulsivity, and people know that you are going to say yes, now you got yourself in a little bit of a pickle because you're going to constantly be overrun with questions, asks, requests that maybe you don't want to do. Get used to saying no right away and say, I'll come back to it. I need time to think. I need to just step away and make sure it fits in my schedule. Figure out what resonates with you. It's going to make a huge difference. There are some main signs that you are overcommitting. And those main signs are things like your to-do list is exploding. You're constantly distracted. Or maybe you just don't even find joy in waking up in the morning. Or you don't find joy when you get to the task and have to do it. You're a little bit more negative, a little bit more heavy. You're not feeling very good about having to do it. Or you can't remember the last time you said no because you say yes that often. And when you start to undervalue yourself, that could be by how much you charge for a service. It could be for how much time you allot for yourself. It could be the fact that you don't allow enough time for you to have a good morning routine to sink in, to eat healthy foods, or to even exercise. Know if you are in a state of overcommitting. Because if you're feeling drained, tired, uninspired, you don't have time to do the things that you want to do, you're feeling overcommitted, frustrated, overwhelmed, all of those are signs that you're probably overcommitting and it's time to reevaluate and to take a step back. Thank you so much for being here today. If this was helpful, hit the subscribe button. Make sure to continue to follow me and to get more valuable tips, tricks, and things that you can do in order for you to be able to move forward more healthfully and fully committed to the things that actually excite you, lift you up, and make you enjoy life.